We could camp through here, Jim suggested, leading us out of the trees and onto a farm. I assessed our surroundings. There was flat land to set up the tents. The barns and machinery looked abandoned and left to rot, so whoever owned the farm was unlikely to drop by and find us trespassing. I caught myself glaring at Emily. We were in this predicament because she couldn't keep up. Night was swiftly falling. We had an official campsite booked, but it would have been too dark to put up our tents by the time we got there, especially as Emily's pace slowed with every mile. "Who owns this place now?" Phil asked. "The bank still, I think," Jim replied. "There was a no trespassing sign back there," Emily said anxiously. "Can you make it another 2 miles?" Jim asked her. "No." With that, the boys started unpacking our gear. I went to help, whilst Emily sat down to pull off her boots and complain about blisters. Jim handed me a flashlight. "Why don't you fetch some firewood?" he instructed. I wandered into the nearby woodland, feeling fed up. Our hike tomorrow would be longer now. We were on our way to Jim and Phil's hometown to visit their families. We thought it would be fun to hike and camp instead of driving, and it would have been had whinging Emily stayed behind. Maybe I was judging her too harshly, considering she was the only one without hiking experience. But it was hardly a challenging route. It was long, but almost entirely flat. My gran could have walked faster. I heard a sudden rustling to my left. I chased it with the beam of my flashlight, but saw nothing. I'm not easily spooked, but I felt unsettled. The noise was louder than that of a squirrel or a small animal. "Hello?" I called out, thinking there might be other hikers nearby. A few popular trails passed the outskirts of the farm. I thought it possible someone was looking for a wandering dog, but I got no response. As I was gathering firewood, I stumbled upon what appeared to be an unmarked grave. A small wooden cross stood in the ground. No name was carved onto its surface. The woodland floor looked untouched, so it couldn't have been a recent death. I wondered if it was the resting place of a family pet. I found my way back to camp, and Jim proceeded to light the fire. Phil was heating canned stew on the portable stove. "We were just telling Emily about the bunny man," he informed me. "Huh?" "The bunny man. Some kids from our school used to drive all the way out here to do the old dance with no pants. It was abandoned because the farmer fell behind with the bills after his wife and children died in a car accident. The bank repossessed this place on Good Friday, and the farmer supposedly moved on. But the couple said a man in a bunny suit attacked their cars with an axe, yelling, 'Get off my land!' It's bullshit, of course," Jim said. "An axe-wielding bunny man allegedly attacked cars in Washington in the 70s. The idiots at school couldn't even think of anything original." "It might have been the farmer that copied, not the couples," Emily pointed out. "And Nate's driver's window was cracked. I doubt he would have done that himself just to prank us," Phil added. "Copycat killers are really common," Emily insisted. "Nobody was killed, here or in Washington," Jim replied. "Maybe we'll be his first victims," Phil said in a mock, spooky voice. "Don't," Emily laughed. Jim said, "It turned out he committed suicide shortly after the farm got repossessed. Further proof the kids were lying. He was dead before half of them claimed they saw him." "It could have been anyone in the suit, though," Phil countered. "I thought I heard someone out there," I told them. "Obviously, I don't think it's the bunny boy, but should we be worried?" "Bunny man," Phil clarified. Nobody else commented on the possibility we had company, so I put it to the back of my mind as we turned in for the night. It was probably just a dog walker. I woke up to the sound of footsteps outside the tent. I looked at Jim, but he was asleep. I didn't want to wake him in case it alerted the intruder that I was aware of their presence. I listened closely, my heart loud in my ears. It was undoubtedly human footsteps. I wondered if it was Phil or Emily, but I didn't know why they'd be circling our tent. They hadn't played any pranks the previous 2 nights, so why would they start now? Eventually, the footsteps faded, and I fell back to sleep, until I was disturbed by Emily shaking me. "Poppy! Jim!" she whisper-yelled. "What is it?" I mumbled sleepily. "I can't find Phil. I woke up and he wasn't there." "Maybe he went to pee. He's been gone half an hour, maybe longer." Perhaps it was him I heard outside the tent after all. "Let's have a quick look. I'm sure he's fine," Jim said calmly. He grabbed our flashlight before climbing out of the tent. Emily had collected the second light by the time I'd put on my boots and coat. "Maybe you should stay here in case he comes back," Jim suggested to Emily as something caught my eye. "Shine the light over here," I told Jim. "Shit," he muttered. "He must be pranking us," I concluded. The words, "Get off my land," were written in red paint on the back of Phil and Emily's tent. "Ha ha, very funny," Jim called out. "Where would he have gotten the red stuff?" he asked me. Then Emily shrieked as if in unbearable pain, but she looked unhurt. My eyes followed the shaky beam of her flashlight to find Phil up a tree behind our tents, a branch impaling his chest cavity. His feet were just above my face, and his severed head lay in the leaves below. Tendrils of bloody neck flesh clung to the torn bone. Emily leaned over to retch and vomit. "We need to get out of here," Jim urged. "Does anyone have phone battery?" I asked. Mine was dead. I'd already used up every spare battery I packed. Jim replied, "I might. I turned off my phone to preserve power. I think we should leave and then call for help." "But the police could be here in—" Emily's words were cut off by the axe that slammed into the back of her skull. She collapsed onto her knees before falling face down. I screamed, and my legs gave way in terror. Jim caught me as I fell. "We need to run," he yelled. As he pulled me up, I made out a white figure in the darkness. It stalked calmly toward us, and I realized what I was seeing. A bunny suit. We sprinted in the opposite direction. Another axe buzzed as it sliced through the air. Jim dragged me out of its path, but he lost his footing and we stumbled to the ground. The bunny walked casually toward us. "How sure are you the farmer died?" I asked. "What? How sure? It's not the farmer. He's dead. We need to get out. It's a spirit," I blurted. How else did he have the strength to lift Phil onto that high branch? "We need to get across the boundaries of the farm. What's the quickest way?" He took my hand, and we got up and bolted. I didn't look behind, but I could tell the bunny was also racing flat out from his heavy footfall. Jim pushed me through a hedge, hundreds of tiny twigs scraping any exposed skin. "This field belongs to the neighboring farm," Jim panted when we made it through. We got up to keep moving. I turned around to see a gate dividing the 2 fields further down. The bunny was staring at us from the other side. "He can't get to us now," I gasped, unable to run any further. Jim looked doubtful, but slowed to a walk. We were too far away to be hit if he threw the axe, unless he used supernatural strength. But he didn't lift his weapon or try to pursue us. On the hike to the nearest village, I persuaded Jim not to call the police until daybreak. I feared the officers would be harmed if they entered the farm in darkness. Jim threw his phone to the ground so we could claim we were delayed getting help because he thought he dropped it at the farm and, understandably, didn't want to go back. There was no police station in the village, so we knocked on a random door at dawn. The police arrived half an hour later. They told us that locals have reported seeing somebody in a bunny suit lurking at the farm around Easter time for over a decade. But they weren't concerned because it's an urban legend and nobody was physically harmed until now. Jim and I checked into the local inn while the police retrieved the bodies of our friends. I was worried they'd have been removed and the officers wouldn't believe us about the attack. Fortunately, Phil and Emily were where we left them, but there was no sign of the perpetrator. We called Jim's mom to tell her what happened and that we'd be with her the next day. Jim was too distraught by Phil's death to travel immediately, and the police said they might need to speak to us again. I fared better because I didn't know Phil and Emily that well. Jim's mom told me people from her town rarely drive out to the farm anymore because of the Bunny Man legend. The body of a young woman was found there 5 years ago, and the killer was never caught. Nobody reported seeing someone in a bunny suit in connection to her death, but it fueled the rumor mill. She also said Phil's uncle worked at the offending bank when the farm was repossessed. Perhaps that's why he, and Emily by association, were killed, while others were merely scared off over the years. Or maybe they were just faster or luckier in escaping. We don't know if the murdered woman had any connection to the bank. I returned to the farm in daylight after Easter. I was unsure if darkness or the Easter period enabled the spirit, so I wasn't taking any chances. Here's another fact about my Gran who would have walked faster than Emily. She's a medium. Gran's a beloved and irreplaceable part of my family, but I admit I thought her a fraud until now. She claims malevolent spirits are usually stopped if you burn their bones. After some exhausting work with a shovel, I unearthed a skeleton beneath the unmarked grave. I poured fuel over the remains and set them ablaze. Hopefully, our bunny man will stay dead now, but Jim thinks it was a deranged human. People better keep clear of the farm, just in case.